joining us on stage. Peter Hutton, now COO, MP of Silva. A little bit of a change from over the last few months. Tim Martin, CEO from Coliseum Sports Media in New Zealand. Peter, how's it been to take a new role?
Tiring. But no, it's been really good fun. I mean, it's an amazing company to join. It's a bit like an extended family that grew out of a house on Sentosa about 6 years ago that appeared to be just a party house. And you certainly wouldn't have thought there was a $500 million turnover business coming out of that house, but it's got there in 6 years. It's an incredible success story. And even though you get a lot of emails that are in Italian, it's a great company to join.
Your career's been very interesting and diverse over the years. You know, you started in radio all those years ago, and now you're selling sports rights around the world.
That just means I'm very old. I realise that's the sort of subtext of that question. No, I've done all sorts of stuff from started off as a commentator when I was 16 at school to starting a football programme called Football Mundial, which is still the most distributed show worldwide as a weekly show. Then ran away to India, started IMG's office in India, covered cricket in India, got arrested a few times, then ran away to Russia, did some time out there, and then went to work for 10 Sports in Dubai, which we launched in 2002 in a situation not so dissimilar to Tim's world, that we launched a channel. There was a poll in the newspaper on the first week after we launched saying, will they still be alive in a month's time, which was very nice. And then we sold it for like $100 million plus sort of 8 years later. Went to work for Fox, came out here to work for Fox for the changeover ESPN Star to Fox Sports, and then finally, after 20 years of travelling, I found myself back home in the UK to work for MP Silva.
I mean, it must be kind of strange being in the situation now of selling the rights, where primarily you've been acquiring them in the past.
I have to say my sympathy is often on the other side of the table, but I do get over that. And it's an interesting challenge, but at the same time, I think your instincts are the same. You know, a lot of us, and seeing the panel before is a good example, a lot of us have grown up in the sports industry. We couldn't do a proper job. And as a result, your instincts for what sport works is the same whether you're buying or selling.
Tim, you know, tell us a little bit about Coliseum, because a lot of people probably won't really know too much about what you guys are doing. But, you know, you're based in New Zealand. You've come up with a new way of getting those Premier League games out to the audience.
Right. Give
us the rundown on what exactly you're doing.
Well, essentially, we're, you know, we distribute sport online, and we've brought the Premier League rights for New Zealand through MP and Silva. We've got a great partnership there.
Thank you for the money, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. You're welcome. There's more to come. But no, and so basically our point of view is that, you know, the internet isn't coming, it's already here. And we think sport is late to the party there. We think that the internet is the predominant form of content distribution pretty much across every other media. You have a look what it's done to music, what it's done to TV, what it's done to movies, and sport's the last one. So our point of view is that it delivers a better viewing experience to the customer because, for example, the Premier League in New Zealand
just before we go any further, let's break it down exactly how are you doing it and what's the offer, because of course Premier League was on Sky Network television before, you know, the DTH service.
So what we have now in New Zealand is you get all 380 games live and on demand for one subscription. And so what we're seeing with the viewing habits of people now is our customers are regularly watching 10 games a week.
So you bought all the rights, including the TV rights, effectively, and now you're delivering them as an OTT service.
That's right. So we kind of reversed the model a little bit, where traditionally what people were doing was buying rights and they would warehouse the digital stuff. And so we don't have a television network. It's not something that we have. So essentially what we did is we led with the online. So we delivered it, you know, online as the way to watch it. And the broadcast stuff is... you know, we've got a deal with TVNZ, a free-to-air component. So we've made the Premier League, you know, free for the first time in New Zealand's history. Well, for the last 20 years.
One
game a week. They get the game for free.
And the specifics of the offer to the consumer, if I'm not wrong, it's $149.
$149.90 gets you all 380 games.
So this is a pretty good deal.
It's 40 cents a game.
And that's cheaper than was it was previously on offer for?
So Sky prices at around $100 a month for just under $100 a month for a sports channel subscription. So, and this is what the internet does, is it lowers prices. I mean, that's a consistent trend of the internet across all things.
You're 2 months in, I guess almost 2 months into
That's
it.
right, 4 weeks.
4 weeks. How's it going?
It's going great. Look, I mean, as Peter said before, there's all sorts of comment that people thought we'd be dead by now. And but we're not. It's going really well. Customers are coming. It's been a real transition for a lot of people. They have to, what they had with traditional broadcasting models is something very easy. And Premier League as a sport, we don't see it as a second screen thing, the internet. It's made for the big screen. So getting, the battle for some people to get an internet feed onto a 65-inch TV has been pretty profound. And, some guys are pretty angry about that. But they get there. And the Premier League gets them there. And
you have, battled by
it's working.
a lot of people complaining, though.
That's right. Sure. Yes, we do. Yes, there's a couple of hilarious emails that come in. There's one guy, my personal favorite. I got two personal favorites. One of them was on email. This guy wrote in going, I don't have the internet, I don't want the internet, I'm not getting the internet on email. That's right. And the other one as well, which, I know there's a fine for swearing, but some guy sent us an email and he had set up the URL at, it was fuckyou@where'smyfootball.com.
That's $10 for Jasper's swear box. Premier League in New Zealand, though, rugby is the thing.
That's right.
Is it going to make a difference?
What?
The Premier League? Are you really going to make a...
Yeah, I think so. Our ambition is to grow the Premier League. I mean, we think that's the key here is that, we think football underperforms in New Zealand. It's the most played game by kids. I mean, more kids play football than rugby. But, it still languishes and it's not covered a lot. And there's still, the Premier League's been, it's been on behind a pay TV for the last, 20 years, and less than half the country have access to that. So that means if you're 20 years or younger in New Zealand, you've probably never, if you're one of, more than at least half the households in New Zealand that don't have Sky, you've never seen a game of Premier League before. And that's pretty unique in the world, we think. So, this was a key part of the thing we're doing, is by putting it on the internet, we make everyone's got it, so everyone can access it. And by putting it on TVNZ, it means it's the first time that the Premier League can be seen in every household in New Zealand.
I mean, Peter, your goal, of course, at MP and Silva is to keep pushing the prices of...
No, we take the moral high ground at all times,
I mean, presumably that's been part of this, because for you guys, you can see more and better value out of going through a platform like this rather than sticking with a effectively monopoly operator that can hold the prices down.
And I think it's fair to say that we could probably have got more money out of Sky New Zealand, but we saw the potential to create a bit more competition in the market. We saw the potential to get more Premier League and therefore more football product out into the market, which is also good for us as the leading seller of international football rights in the area. So it works for us in lots of different ways. But also, God loves a trier, and we've got to encourage people who are starting out in this business to have a go, make it work, and that will improve the experience for everybody. The last panel was talking about innovation. The biggest innovation of all is finding different ways of getting the content to the consumer in a way the consumer wants to experience it. And that's really the thing that we're seeing all around us at the moment, and it's fantastic to see.
But do you think this is a big challenge for TV? I mean, you're also in the TV business in a big way in many parts of the world. And, something like this, starting effectively small, and only because of population size, but nevertheless, can we see this thing popping up in other parts of the world?
Look, we see the same model rolling out in all sorts of market. And, you see IPTV against traditional broadcast forms as the basic competition in markets all over the world. I think... As Tim was saying, the best thing about this is that the more product is becoming available simultaneously. And that has to be good for the whole sports industry, whether it be perceived as TV or perceived as broadband. It's opening up more revenue streams. It's opening up a better way of experiencing the product. And on that basis, you can't argue against it.
And it's bringing you more money.
That is also true.
I mean, I guess that's it. You have to increase the value to the audience, though. in order to push that price up.
Yeah, and I think, look, part of what we do as an agency, and the Premier League isn't a good example because we paid a fee for it and then we sell it on. But most of the time we're working for federations to raise the value of their product and to be able to go back to them in 3 years' time and saying, look, we've raised your value from here to here and now we're going to keep rising it. So we have to look for ways that shake up the market and shake up the norms of people paying small inflation rises. And that might seem strange in Asia, but it's certainly a massive problem in Europe where the rights fees are pretty flat at the moment. So we have to try and shake up the market, find different ways of people experiencing the content and find different ways of adding value to that content.
See, I think that's a really good point, because I think the other thing this thing does is, innovations like this, it's not just about the technology, it's about the business model that gets wrapped around it. And so it is a new way of generating revenue, and you can price it differently, and you can structure it all differently, and you can create different value around that. And that, I think, is interesting for sport.
And I think, it goes to the heart of who the federations are and what their constituents are. Because if you're a league, what you really don't want is everybody watching the Manchester United game in one market and nobody watches any other teams. You want to be able to say to your teams, look, you're all out there and available, you all have the same potential exposure, and although people do watch more of Manchester United, at least you have a fair fighting chance if you were to invest in players. And this sort of technology allows them to preach to their votes and say, look, we're doing the best thing for you.
In the last session, we were talking, with Andrew Stark from Surf Australia, which is, when it comes to it, quite a niche offering. So presumably, this kind of offering is really very applicable also to those real niche sports that have pockets all around the world.
And it's a lot cheaper than the surf pool as well.
But in many ways, all sports niche. Like it's just how big the niche is. I mean, that's what the internet is. It's just a collection of niches. And what it enables you is just to find the niche that you want. You just connect with that. And so, like for some people, the niche is the Premier League, and that's a big niche. But then there's surfing, and there's, as the guy was saying earlier, there's just millions and millions of surfing fans around the world, and this technology enables you just to connect with that whenever you want.
Having said that, you're also getting back into television because MP and Silva is launching the beIN Sport channels around Asia. How does that sit?
Sure. I mean, I think it's actually part of the same answer, really, in that, first of all, it's a partnership, and it's a partnership with Al Jazeera, who are quite useful partners to have. And I think it came from that same basic philosophy of, look, how do we raise the value of the rights we have in the markets that we're trying to sell to? Because if you look, for example, as Indonesia as a market, to sell onto pay TV Indonesia when the penetration of pay TV there is so low was very difficult. And the rights fees that were coming out of pay TV were very small. We've managed to use the Premier League as a way of creating competition in that market, raising the value of rights in that market, increasing the competition between the sports operators, and therefore shaking it up in a way that's good for everybody in the sports industry. So in the same way as you can see the turbulence that we were able to help create in New Zealand, we've done the same in Indonesia, and I would argue that when we launch in the other markets where we're focusing on, we'd do the same there. You look at the value of football rights in the Philippines or Taiwan, it's tiny. You look at what's happened with international football in Hong Kong over the last couple of years, and hardly any's been shown because of the obsession with the Premier League. The other leagues weren't getting that attention. So by helping to launch the channels, we're also creating a bit more friction in these markets, which should hopefully benefit the rights holder as we grow.
So specifically, just for everybody's benefit, what rights are you including in your channels?
It's always difficult because I'm now going to get something wrong, right? But the one in Indonesia is driven by football. It's a fantastic list of leagues that we've got under one umbrella. So Premier League obviously drives that business. We've also got the FA Cup, we've got the Championship, we've got the French League, we've got the Bundesliga. There's like 6 or 7 top European football leagues all under one umbrella, which is a great offering to have because it also allows you to have very good bite-sized content of the best goals from so many different leagues. Hong Kong's pretty similar, driven by football, and Serie A is key to that. But again, a big bundle of live soccer every week on what will be 2 channels there. In the Philippines and Taiwan, we have the Premier League again, so those drive those markets. And then we're also looking at Thailand, where, again, we have a lot of rights that are already sold to the conventional broadcasters there. But we've just taken on new content. We've just taken the world rights to the Scottish League. We've just taken on a new deal with Turkish football this week. So there's plenty of content out there. And for us, we'd prefer the content to be out and being seen than sort of holding out there for some great deal from somebody that we've been selling to for 20 years.
Thailand at the moment, of course, are very interesting regarding the Premier League rights. I mean, what's your view on that? CTH has paid a lot of money, estimating around $350 million for 3 years of the Premier League. Can a market like that actually, make it back in some way, whether it's in terms of revenue or eyeballs?
Well, I think that's the key thing, is make it back some way, because when you have the dominant sports right property in the market, then that can drive all sorts of decisions. That can decide what sort of technology you receive your content on. It can decide sponsorship decisions. It can drive your whole lifestyle in terms of people build their life around the dominant sports content in their market. So for CTH, it sounds like a massive jump. But again, it's a huge market, very underpenetrated by pay TV or by pay media. So if it helps drive people towards growing that whole business, then it's great. And for CTH, they've certainly gone about it the right way. They've spent money on infrastructure. They've spent money on production. They clearly believe in the quality product. So it's nice to see them out there and fighting for it.
I mean, going back to New Zealand for a moment, and we did touch on the rugby earlier on, but. Yep. But there are some stress points there. You are going to have to fight quite hard to push Premier League through to make enough money.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Like it's certainly working at the moment. I mean, certainly we need we need.
How many homes do you need to make it?
Well, see, it's different because you don't work by homes. Because it's through the internet, it's available to the individual, and so we don't sell to the home, we sell to the person. So there is nothing to stop a 15-year-old buying our product, because like my 8-year-old son, he's taught on iPad. And so we don't see it. New Zealand's got just under 2 million homes, but we see the 4.3 million people as the potential customer base, because everyone can subscribe for themselves.
But presumably, reasonably, probably not more than one person in the household is going to pay that subscription, and they are going to probably plug it into their big screen TV.
That's right. But the interesting thing as well about the Premier League, and for New Zealand's perspective, is the time zones are really significant. So it's not friendly viewing, right? So we see that the biggest game happens for us on the first game of the round. That's Saturday, sort of midday game in the UK. That's midnight Sunday morning. And so, those Sunday games are Monday morning, and then those, Monday games are Tuesday morning. So we don't get any viewers like at 3 o'clock on a Monday morning watching live football. It's just not possible. So what that means is that we see a lot of people watch all day at the office. It's a real office product. And so we're seeing a lot of our customers watching 10 games a week.
So nobody's doing any work in New Zealand anymore.
Fine with me. No one was doing any work anyway.
Anybody got any questions? We've only got a couple of minutes left with Peter and Tim. Anybody want to chip in with any questions out there? No questions? No questions? Peter, I mean, looking at, you mentioned some of the other properties that you've got in your portfolio, and maybe looking to roll out things in the future. But I mean, can this kind of model that you've come up together with Tim, can this really extend to big sports rights, or are we, in the other big sports rights in the future? Do you think, or is it really going to be something that is focused on smaller leagues, smaller sports, and so on? How do you see it playing out?
It can work on big sports rights if people are prepared to put the money up front to buy them. I mean, that's the truth. We talked yesterday about how digital is a great additional experience, but as Tim has proved, it can also be the leading way of experiencing content. And if the money is there, then the rights holders will look at the offers, they'll look at the visibility that's possible, and again, you look at the pay TV penetrations against potential internet penetration, and you think, well, maybe that is an option for them. So I can see it happening with bigger and bigger sports. It's simply a question of, will the YouTubes, will the big players in the market put down significant rights fees? And we are seeing the signs that could happen.
See, I totally agree with that. I think the technology's there. I mean, we'll be delivering a high-definition feed through the internet to New Zealand television screens by Christmas. So the tech's there, the customers are there. I mean, everyone's online already. There's not many people in the world today who don't know how to click on a YouTube clip. And so the next thing to come is the money. And so, the private equity guys, particularly in places like America, they've got no problem investing in internet businesses. And, you look at Apple with that enormous, $135 billion, cash on its balance sheet. That can buy a lot of rights.
In our next panel in a few minutes, we're going to be talking a lot more detail about sports rights and what is the right price. And I guess that's a question. Preview that for us, Peter. I mean, what is the right price? How does that price get determined?
It's as much as we can get someone to pay.
So does that mean that in 3 years' time, Tim's prices are going to go up?
No, we're really nice to Tim.
I'm a nice guy. They're also kind. But no, we don't. I think that's right, isn't it? That's the prices should go up. That's a healthy market. And so we'd fully expect that.
Final chance for questions, anybody? Otherwise, we're going to let these guys go. Thank you very much, Peter Hutton, MP and Silva, Tim Martin, Coliseum Sports Media. Thank you very much for taking part.